Alright, one more time. Probably won't be one more time. In a world that is being force fed fear, I'm going to try and shine a little light with a simple mathematical equation. And hear me out on this, because if there's anybody that's freaking out about the mortality rate, I'm going to go ahead and give you an example on how it's complete nonsense. And I'm being a little bit quiet because it's kind of late, and even though I'm in a house with four other people, I can fucking hear somebody upstairs 2 floors above me, because of the ventilation situation. So I imagine that, they could hear me, so I'm not trying to be down here fucking, talking all loud and shit. But I want to talk real quick about the ventilation. I mean, Jesus Christ, ventilation. The, brain fart. I want to talk about the, Jesus Christ. I swear, I don't know if I have a brain tumor or if I'm just getting fucking. I'm 38 and I can't remember the mortality rate. Wow, I've only said that word 1,000 times in the last 4 months. And when it comes time to say it, when I'm recording, I forget what the fuck it is. I'm going to give a quick example. All right, the way that the mortality rate is being determined, at least in this country, I don't know how. I mean, I'm assuming it's being, figured out the same way everywhere, because this is the best way that we can do it. The mortality rate is being figured out or being determined by basically a B divided by A equals C equation. A is the amount of people that have confirmed to have that are confirmed to have the virus, not the amount of people that have it. The amount of people that are confirmed to have the virus. That's important. That'll come up later. The B is the amount of people that have confirmed to have died from the virus. And that'll also come up later. That's important. And then the C is the percentage. It's more, you're dividing the amount of people that have the virus. That have died from the virus, and you're dividing that into the amount of people that are confirmed to have the virus. Now, the first problem with that is that the inaccuracy comes when you're taking, or let me rephrase that. If you want to figure out the proper mortality rate of a virus, you have to figure out the actual number of people that have the virus, and then figure out the actual number of people that have died from the virus. That is not the equation that's being used. And that's open knowledge. That's not my opinion. You can't say, well, we don't know how many people actually have it, so what we'll do is we'll divide the amount of deaths into the amount of people that we know have it, and then we'll just go with that. Well, the R rating, that doesn't sound right. God, my fucking brain. The R value, I think that's what it is. Whatever. Alright, there's a number out there, regardless of what it's called. I might be too fucking stupid to remember that fucking I'm not a goddamn virologist, I'm going to get some shit wrong. But basically, there's a value. There's a number that, and it has a term. It might be R value, R number, whatever. I think there's an R in there somewhere. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean what I'm saying is false. It just means that's false. But it's a little bit over 2, meaning that a person that has the virus, in the time that they go through their life being asymptomatic, they spread that virus to slightly over 2 people. 2, that's it. But that number is important when you're figuring out the B divided by A equals C equation, and I'll get into that in a second. And again, this is simple math. This is shit, when you're in 3rd grade. I said this in another video. I don't know if I uploaded it or not, but it's like, you're traveling on a train 50 miles an hour. You need to go 150 miles. How long is it going to take to get there? It's 3 hours. Well, that's B divided by A equals C. B is 50, A is 150, and then you get C, which is fucking 3 hours. Now, to get back on point, the reason that equation doesn't work is because if the R value is 2 on average, or slightly over 2, let's just say, for example, you have 100,000 people that are sick, and all of those are spreading the virus to 2 other people. That means the actual value of A, which is the amount of people that are sick, but is being labeled as the amount of people that are considered or confirmed to be sick, would be 300,000, because it's 200,000 more than 100,000, so you're counting the 100 plus the 200, so it's 300,000. So if you have 1,000 people that have confirmed to die from the virus, and you're dividing that into 100,000, then you're dealing with a 1% mortality rate. But if you if you divide the 1,000 deaths into 300,000, you're dealing with a 0.33%. It's much less. The other problem is the B, which is the confirmed deaths. Those numbers can be fudged for many different reasons, and I'm not going to sit here and get into them. But one, for example, could be if you're a governor, or if you're somebody like a head, person at a hospital. I don't know what the fuck their job title would be, but if you run a hospital, you might want to make it look as though your numbers are higher than they are, so that when help is available, they'll go to your hospital in your town, in your county, in your city, in your state, whatever the case may be, and help out your people. Because why wouldn't you want that? You're a compassionate person. That's where compassion comes into play. That's a problem. That's a whole nother fucking video. People that are compassionate. They always want to fucking talk about compassion, but they only talk about the compassion about who they're compassionate about, this group of people. But then, in order to be compassionate for that group of people, you're being non-compassionate about another group of people. Like, somebody's going to suffer. So, now you have this equation where you have no way of figuring out an accurate number for B, which is the amount of people that are actually dying from the virus. Because I think in Italy, they found out that they were saying they had a 10% mortality rate, and they realized that they were fudging their numbers. Basically, anybody that was dying from anything, as long as they had coronavirus in their system, they were labeling it as death from coronavirus. Didn't matter if they were dying from fucking leukemia, and they had been struggling for 15 years. And then they got the coronavirus, and it basically just kind of helped them along. It's like, nope, had coronavirus. You died from coronavirus. So that number is impossible to be inaccurate. Then you have A, which is the amount of people that actually have the virus. There's no way to figure that out. I think they said in Italy, I think they had, or not Italy, I think it was Sweden, I don't know, some fucking country, was the highest country that had done the most tests statistically, and their numbers were only 5%. In the United States, 0.6% was the latest numbers that I saw. 0.6% of people have been tested. How can you figure out who has the virus if you're only testing 1 in 1,000 fucking people, or whatever the fuck it is? There's no way to come up with an accurate number. So you have no way to come up with an accurate A, and you have no way to come up with an accurate B, but you're going to get on TV and claim you have an accurate number for C. The only way to get to C is to have an accurate A and B. You can't divide B into A and get C if your A and B are fucking bullshit. And I'll give you a real quick example on that. Let's say you're trying to figure out how many people are fired in a company. And you figure out you go to the boss and he says, yeah, I had 100 employees. In the entire time that I've owned this company, I had 100 employees. You say, how many people were fired? And you talk to the people and you figure out it's 10 people. So you say, okay, that's 10 people. So 10% of the employees were fired over the lifetime of the company existing. Here's where the problem comes in. You have an X factor that fucks up all of your math. And that X factor is 100 other employees that were undocumented that you don't know exist and that you're not including into the equation. So let's say out of all of those 100 employees that you don't know about, none of them were fired. That means you have 10 employees being fired in a company of 200 people, which drops the ratio from 10% to 5%. Or you could say, on the other end of the spectrum, out of those 100 undocumented employees, every single one of them was fired. That means you have 110 employees being fired out of 200, which brings it up to over 50%. So you have a delta between 5 and almost 55%. That's a 50% delta. So what the unknown in the equation, what you can't factor into the equation, changes the outcome of the equation drastically. And that's exactly what's happening with this fucking shit. And the reason why I say that the unknown is actually a legitimate reason to believe that the mortality rate is lower than what we're projecting, is because we can actually test more accurately the people that are dying, because they actually go to a hospital, show up sick, and then die, and then a medical examiner figures out if they have the virus. Whereas, so that number is going to be more accurate and more stable. Whereas the number of people that are sick that actually have it is impossible to determine, and based on the R value, or whatever the fuck it's called, there's likely to be 2 to 3 times the amount of people that have the virus than what we're actually adding into the calculation. Which means there's more people that have the virus and than the same amount of people that are dying. So when you do that same equation, you end up with a lower mortality rate. I mean, that's basic math. This ain't calculus, alright? You just gotta think for a second. I'm not saying people aren't dying. I'm not saying this ain't a fucked up situation we're in. I'm not saying that at all. Just saying, just take it down a notch. If you're freaked out, the best thing you could do, regardless, I'm not talking about COVID-19, I'm talking about anything in life. If you're freaked out on something, the best thing you can do is educate yourself on it. So do it. And I'm hoping that people watch this. And even if only 3 people watch this, if they go to work and they tell their friends about, like, hey, this made sense. My brother was saying this. My friend of mine was making this point. Check this out real quick. Hopefully that will cause people to calm down a little bit. Because now they're trying to sit there and act like you can get sick just by breathing in somebody's vicinity. I think all that is fear-mongering in a good way. I think that they're realizing that they need to get people to stay in the house. Because if you could just get this virus that way, if it was that easily transmittable, there'd be a fuckload more sick people than what we have now. Period. And you're going to tell me that the top scientists that work at the CDC, SAMRID, and other fucking facilities all around the world, every major country has their own CDC and USAMRID, whatever the fuck they call their shit. You're telling me that they didn't know? I heard somebody was saying that somebody that lived in an apartment complex got 14 other people sick that lived in the apartment building. Not in their house. They lived in the building. Because they believed that the virus traveled through the pipes. Are you fucking kidding me? Give me a fucking break. If that isn't fear-mongering in an attempt to keep people away from each other to try and flatten the curve of this virus, I don't know what is. That is the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard. If this virus was that transmittable and had such a slow incubation period and a period where you could go asymptomatic, this whole world would be practically sick by now. The first 2 months it was in America, we didn't even shut shit down. And even now that shit's shut down, people are still congregating in populated areas. But I'm supposed to believe, with a virus that has a R value, or whatever the fuck it's called, of 2, is spread through breathing? on top of touching shit, and it's only spreading to 2 people for every 1 person that's sick, don't you think that would be spreading to like 100? Don't you think a lot more people... I'm done. It's just... Shit just keeps fucking changing and changing. You got one fucking person saying that the curve is flattening out. You got another person saying that we're going to be alright in a month or so. You got another person saying the virus is going to be killed off in the summer. And then it'll come back in the winter, and this might happen 2 or 3 times. It's like, that's why I just go off mathematics. Now, I know the numbers are fucked up because they're being given to me by liars and media and government. But I gotta go off of something. I can't just sit around fucking running around like Chicken Little like the fucking, the goddamn fucking sky is falling. I gotta come to some kind of conclusion. But this is just ridiculous. It's every day, it's something different. Meanwhile, I'm still out there every day fucking working. I'm getting 3, 4, 5-day paychecks in. Work is slow because ain't nobody wanting fucking construction workers to be coming over. But I'm still working. I'm going to work. There's cars driving up and down the street. There's cars driving up and down the street outside of the property of the house that I'm doing. I'm buying cigarettes and energy drinks. I'm going to the grocery store. And here I am. I mean, I might have the virus. I don't know. It might be 12 days from now before I realize I fucking got it, and I'll be regretting everything I'm saying. But even if I got it, it doesn't take back anything I'm saying. It just means I was unlucky and I got the shit. But when the media only it's like, here's the other example, real quick. Let's say you have 100,000 people go to war and 5,000 people die, brutally, bloody, and just limbs just blown off of them. And you as a reporter are told by your boss that you need to report on that. You need to report on the 5,000 people that died and 95,000 people that lived. You have 2 ways to handle that, basically. You can go on TV and you can go, oh my God, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. There were dead bodies everywhere. The water was red. Jesus Christ, I wouldn't wish this on anybody. Or you can go on TV and be like, well, you know, it was a tragic event. 100,000 people went over here, and 100,000 heroes, 5,000 unfortunately didn't make it. And but there were 95,000 people that survived, and through the grace of God, they're able to make it back to their family, and life is going to go on for them. And I can only wish the best for them and their family, and for the lives of all of the people that have had to deal with this sadness. Which one would you want? Would you want to have somebody on TV freaking you the fuck out? Or because I said the same thing in 2 different ways. I gave the same exact knowledge. I just did it in a calm way, and I did it in a fucked up way. The media's doing it in a fucked up way. That's why I tell everybody, stop listening to the media. Even when they're telling the truth, they do it in a fucking way that just freaks everybody. Why, when you're dealing with a worldwide pandemic crisis, would you want to fucking pass news that scares the shit out of everybody, unless your intention is to scare the shit out of everybody? What you want in a crisis is for people to be calm, to be collected, so that they can think properly. You don't go on TV and scare the fucking shit out of them. That's when you end up with fucking people committing crime and breaking into stores because they think the fucking world is ending. And this isn't rocket science or science type shit. This is just common sense. Like, I mean, whoever watches this, you're a human being. Which way would you want somebody to report information to you? Would you want them to be calm and collected and hope that information spreads to you in a calm and collected way? Or do you want them fucking screaming it at you where you're sitting there fucking jumping up and down, freaking the fuck out? Every time you turn on the news, all they're doing is sensationalizing people dying. They're not talking about all the people. There's people that are getting sick that they never end up symptomatic. I haven't heard that. I heard it one time. Shit is fucking ridiculous, man. Alright, I'm done. It's almost 20 fucking minutes into this video. I thought it was going to be a 5-minute video. Fuck this.